about all the other champions in that division? You got Scott Quigg, Carl Frampton, Guillermo Rigondeaux.
I'm gonna get the opportunity, boy. You working your ass off, don't you?
Hey, that's what we do. That's what we do.
Deontay's Boxing Nation. I see it, baby. Y'all the man.
That's what it is.
I love it. I love what you're doing for boxing.
Thank you,
man.
man.
Don't stop. Keep on going strong. Keep on going hard. A lot of big fights coming this year. A lot of big fights.
Hi, you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, the PBC series continues to prosper with yet another great free card on CBS this time. It was kind of funny because I had one of my friends who really doesn't even watch boxing unless they come over here, and I just happen to be watching boxing or something like that. But one of my friends called me up and said, man, you watching these fights on CBS? That just goes to show you that these boxing matches are reaching casual fans that boxing has never reached before. Now let's go ahead and get into the actual fight. Before I talk about the main event called Frampton versus Alejandro Gonzalez, let me just say real quick, Fred Kasi, he definitely beat Chris Arreola. You know, it was ruled a draw, but there's no doubt Fred won the fight. Some of the rounds were closer, with Chris Arreola landing some good body shots later on in the fight. But outside of a couple of rounds, the other rounds, I believe Fred, he won clearly. But with that being said, I have to be honest with you guys, I was actually pulling for Chris Arreola because I wanted to watch Deontay Wilder versus Chris Arreola. And now we're probably going to get to see that, which should be a pretty intriguing fight and an entertaining fight as well. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the main event. I really like this kid called Frampton. This was a treat getting to watch him for the first time on American soil. I didn't realize he was as talented as he is. Of course, he made some mistakes. First thing I have to say about this fight is that's one thing about Al Haymon, man. If you look at the majority of fighters that signed with Al Haymon, he put you in there with tough competition almost right away. I mean, if you look at the fact that this was Carl Frampton's first fight, and he's fighting against Alejandro Gonzalez, who has a hell of a pedigree, a fighting pedigree, because Gonzalez's father was a champion as well. So that tells you that Alejandro Jr., he grew up in the boxing gym. Okay? We seen Al Haymon throw Julio Cesar Chavez in there with Fanfara, a fighter that Chavez Sr. didn't even want his son to fight because he believed that the guy was too tough of an opponent, and we seen what happened, right? Keep in mind, Fanfara is not an Al Haymon fighter. Then we also seen Miguel Vasquez. Soon as he signed with Al Haymon, he was thrown in there with Mickey Bay. Mickey Bay was not an Al Haymon fighter. We seen what happened in that fight. Okay, and not to mention all the other fights that we've seen. Porter Broner, a 50-50 fight, and Keith Thurman versus Guerrero, and the list goes on and on and on. So the point that I'm making is Carl Frampton was thrown in here with a very tough opponent, and we found that out very early in the fight because he was knocked down twice in the first round. Now, Alejandro Gonzalez said that Carl Frampton had never been in the ring with a real Mexican fighter. Now, what I thought was interesting about him saying that is Alejandro Gonzalez Sr. was more of an aggressive, come forward, always walking forward type of fighter. But in this fight, the guy that was walking forward the majority of time wasn't Alejandro Gonzalez, it was Carl Frampton. And Alejandro Gonzalez, who fought a real good fight, he was fighting more like a boxer puncher, as opposed to this, come forward, aggressive, traditional Mexican style type fight, right? Don't get me wrong, there was times where he did come forward, but I'm saying he didn't fight that way throughout the entire fight. So with that being said, Carl Frampton, I was impressed because he got dropped twice in the first round. Even after he got dropped, he still continued to come forward, right? And then he started to adjust, which is always impressive. He realized, because he kept trying to come in real quick It seemed like he was anxious to really impress and land something hard and, get some payback possibly. So he kept trying to come in with that lead right hand. But after a couple rounds, Carl Frampton, he adjusted and he started to use his jab. Once he started to use his jab, that set up more combinations. Okay? And he ended up eventually outboxing this guy, even though he was the one coming forward. He pretty much ended up outboxing Alejandro Gonzalez for 12 rounds. So I really like Carl Frampton's style. He has a lot of speed. He has great reflexes. He puts his punches together very well. He's trying to get the knockout on top of having this flashy type of style with a little bit of rhythm. So, he's very impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not the best at 122. Of course, we know who that is. That's Guillermo Rigondeaux. But what Carl Frampton does is he just makes the division a little bit more entertaining. Now, if you paid attention to the intro with Sam Watson basically saying all these guys are going to fight each other eventually, what's interesting is that interview took place before Al Heyman had signed Abner Mares, before he signed Carl Frampton. This was a time when he only had Leo Santa Cruz. Look at the progression of the PBC series. From that point to today, now he has Abner Mares, Carl Frampton, and Leo Santa Cruz. And now there's rumors that he may also get Guillermo Rigondeaux. So Sam Watson wasn't joking when he said all of these fighters are going to get an opportunity. Now it's looking like we're going to get to see fights that we never thought we would ever see. Another big fight that's going to be on free TV, Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares at the Staples Center. I mean, how big is that? At Staples Center on free TV, which I'll be doing a prediction video on that fight as well. So congratulations to Carl Frampton. Dealt with some adversity and got the job done. That's pretty much all I got. I'm on to the next one.